Tonight on Chronicle, she describes her work as painting with hot wax and liquid dyes on thirsty cloth, how Betsy Sterling Benjamin expresses a Buddhist philosophy in her fiber art.
I was so very connected with the idea that there needed to be more kindness in the world. And so I thought, if only I could wrap the world in wonderful cloth. This is called bokashi, graduated shading, and that's that wonderful glow that Japanese kimono, Japanese fiber arts has. That dark at the top of the sky and fading down into a pale white horizon, which caught my eye so many years ago, and I thought, when I first went to Japan, I said, I want to learn that. Rozome is short for Roketsuzome. Ro is wax, and zome is dyeing. And it's an ancient technique that has been in Japan for 1,200 years. I learned Rozome in Kyoto. I had been studying batik before that and teaching it. And when I went to Japan more than 20 years ago, Rozome really caught my eye. To be able to do the beautiful shaded dyeing as well as the wax application. What you're seeing is a traditional way of dyeing fabric. It could be kimono fabric or panels. And this is called a tamono, stretched with shinshi. Excuse me, here are the shinshi underneath. There they are, the bamboo tenter hooks that stretch the fabric the width way, and the harigi here and here that stretch it the long way. And at this point, I'm actually waxing out the background, as I call it, which is applying the wax on the outside edges so that I'm able to dye into the body of the pieces. And when there's wax on the surface, I can play the edges, as I call it. And you see it absolutely popping right out. It was white on white to begin with, and now you can see the shape. Where did it begin? It probably began in my hometown of Lynn, in my grandmother's flower garden, and being surrounded by beauty. I was quite young when my family came up here to Kingston, New Hampshire, and bought property. I was 5 years old. In some ways, I've come full circle because I am now here living on the land that I tromped around when I was a young child. I'm a traveler. I lived in Iceland, in Florida, in Arizona, and then to Japan. Japan was the longest place I lived for more than 18 years. And living in Japan, I was connected with developing my spiritual background as well as my art. The millennium was coming along, 1998, 1999, and I decided I wanted to do something to mark that date, so to speak. It had to have to do with fibers because I'm a fiber artist, and it had to be a global project. And it had to be connected with spirit. I was so very connected with the idea that there needed to be more kindness in the world. And so I thought, if only I could wrap the world in wonderful cloth. And I came up with the idea of making a meditation cloth, really, to send to each of the continents. I very much wanted to include the beauty of each of those continents, but also with a great awakening to the fragility of the land and the fragility of the people there. They were sent out around the world, and they were worn simultaneously on all 7 continents on that one day. A wonderful way of connecting with people around the world and talking to them about what would they do if they had a cloth that could heal their continent, that would promote kindness and connection with all of us. I have a very strong desire to communicate with people, to share perhaps my vision, perhaps what I feel is important in this world. And so I pick those kinds of themes and try to come up with how I can share that. This is a hanging scroll and mounted in Japan, but the title of it is The Song of Silence, and I did it in a Quaker village with the cloud florist blowing along the top and the wonderful jungle kind of eating up from the bottom. This is the Cup of Generosity, again a hanging scroll, and with the wonderful almost begging bowl or cup in the center, purchased by my doctor, who saw it in an exhibition and thought that that was exactly what she needed. Doctors give so very much. This is a new piece that's just getting finished, and it's really ode to the silk moth. And because I have worked with silk for so many years, and was always very appreciative to the wonderful silkworm that created that wonderful reeled silk that I use. And so I did this as a gift and a thank you, and to bring awareness to this. So from the eggs down in the bottom and into the silkworms that we see here that are moving into a box where they are creating their cocoons and spinning the wonderful silk. Coming up to this point, having the cocoon thread being reeled up into silk thread, which virtually comes up and is it is the silk, the reeled silk that I work with. Well, I sit on my cushion. I have my altar of silk here. I have my wonderful flowing wax and that thirsty cloth, as we call it. And it's very centering, very meditative.